All right, let's dive into one of the most enigmatic and elusive elements in the Warhammer 40K universe, the Black Fleet. Now, if you've heard whispers about a hidden armada operating in the deepest recesses of space, you've probably caught wind of the Black Fleet. But what exactly is it? How does such a fleet stay out of the prying eyes of the Imperium and everyone else? And more importantly, why does it even exist in the first place? The Black Fleet isn't something that's openly discussed. It's not like the mighty fleets of the Imperial Navy, which march boldly in the light of the Emperor's glory. No, the Black Fleet thrives in the shadows, unseen, unknown, and unacknowledged by the Imperium itself. What makes this fleet so different from the others in the Imperium's arsenal is its secrecy. It's so clandestine that there are no official records, no fleet identification codes, no public knowledge of its existence. And yet, it is real, it is powerful, and if the rumors are to be believed, it may even hold the key to some of the most dangerous and hidden aspects of the Imperium's war-making capacity. The question on everyone's mind is, why keep such a force in the dark? After all, the Imperium is no stranger to vast fleets, armadas meant for war, conquest, and dominance. So why is the Black Fleet not listed alongside the others? Why does it exist at all, hidden beneath layers of secrecy, only revealed through cryptic references in scattered accounts and obscure records? Some argue that the fleet was meant to be a tool of the Emperor himself, an ultimate secret weapon forged in the darkest corners of the Imperium. Perhaps it was meant to serve a purpose too horrific, too powerful for public knowledge. Maybe the Black Fleet was a necessary evil, a force designed to fight a war that could not be fought openly, or to carry out missions that could not be done by any other arm of the Imperium. There are even theories suggesting it was created for a much darker reason, something related to the Emperor's personal will and his vision for the future of humanity. What we know for sure is that the Black Fleet, whatever its true purpose, is out there, drifting through the stars, in the hidden corners of space where even the most experienced Imperial navigators fear to tread. It's the ultimate unknown, and that mystery is exactly what makes it so dangerous. Because, in a universe filled with threats from all sides, what's more terrifying than something that the Imperium itself refuses to acknowledge? A shadowy fleet, operating under its nose, carrying out missions it will never admit to, and hiding truths it will never reveal. The Black Fleet may be shrouded in secrecy, but its mere existence raises countless questions. And as we explore this hidden armada, the truth of why it was created and what it could mean for the Imperium becomes more tantalizing with every passing moment. The origins of the Black Fleet are as shrouded in mystery as its very existence. To understand where this shadowy armada might have come from, we have to sift through fragments of the past, piecing together the smallest hints and the wildest theories that have emerged over the years. The first whispers of such a fleet don't come from official Imperial sources. There's no Grand Admiral's report, no shining fleet manifest. Instead, they emerge from the forgotten corners of lore, rumors, covert records, and the scattered words of those who would know. In many ways, the Black Fleet is the embodiment of the Imperium's darkest secrets. There are some who claim that it was birthed during the Great Crusade itself, a creation of the Emperor's will, designed to serve purposes so dark and so integral to his grand plan that even the legions were kept in the dark. Some believe that the Black Fleet was meant to be an instrument of ultimate control, a tool to enforce the Emperor's vision, even in those moments when diplomacy and military might could not achieve the impossible. What makes this theory so chilling is the possibility that it was always meant to be hidden, a covert force kept under the Emperor's tightest seal of secrecy. Other fan theories suggest that the origins of the Black Fleet go back even further, before the Great Crusade, during the days of the Unification Wars on Terra. Perhaps, some speculate, the fleet was born out of the Emperor's need for a force that would never question his authority, a fleet so loyal that it would operate outside the scope of Imperial bureaucracy. Others suggest that it was created in response to the early signs of the Chaos God's influence. After all, the Imperium's fight against the forces of chaos has always been one marked by clandestine operations, things that had to be dealt with in the shadows, with no questions asked and no witnesses left behind. The idea that the Black Fleet could have been a tool forged specifically to fight the creeping influence of chaos is terrifying, but entirely plausible. Maybe it was a fleet meant to operate beyond the reach of the Inquisition, without the oversight of the Adeptus Terra, a weapon for those who knew the true nature of the galaxy's looming threats. Yet, some fans argue that the origins of the Black Fleet are much darker and more personal to the Emperor himself. There are whispers of the Emperor's darker experiments, something far more sinister than the creation of the Primarchs. What if the Black Fleet was born from these hidden, morally questionable endeavors, a response to the Emperor's own deep fears and insecurities about the future? Could it be that, in some twisted corner of his mind, the Emperor saw the creation of such a fleet as a way to safeguard humanity's future? A fleet built from the broken parts of a shattered civilization, fighting for survival in a universe that had long since turned against them. This takes us to the first recorded mention of the Black Fleet. Strangely enough, the earliest references to it come not from the Emperor's personal archives or from the records of the Great Crusade, but from scattered fragments in the post-heresy era. The idea of a hidden fleet operating outside the laws of the Imperium is so terrifying and so secretive that it appears only in the most obscure texts, buried within larger treatises about the Emperor's grand plan. These early mentions are cryptic, often oblique, with only fleeting references to a secret fleet that carried out operations in the deepest parts of space, far from the sight of the Imperium's leaders. As time passes, the mystery of the Black Fleet deepens. In the post-heresy period, when the Imperium is fractured and on the brink of collapse, rumors begin to surface in the underbelly of the Imperium's most secretive organizations. The Inquisition, the Adeptus Mechanicus, and even the remnants of the traitor legions whisper of an armada that still moves in the dark, carrying out unknown operations that no one dares to question. These rumors become more frequent, more insistent. Some claim the fleet has been lost in time, existing only as a forgotten chapter in the Emperor's grand strategy, a tool that was never meant to be used. Others suggest that it is still out there, operating under the shadow of the Imperium, its true purpose locked away behind layers of secrecy. There's also a tantalizing fan theory that the Black Fleet may have been designed as the ultimate containment force, a fleet capable of operating in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, hunting down rogue elements of the Imperium, or even dealing with Xenos threats that the Imperium would never officially acknowledge. This theory suggests that the Black Fleet might have been tasked with operations so dangerous and so morally gray that they were kept outside the purview of even the most secretive departments of the Imperium. In this theory, the fleet's role is not just one of war, but one of maintaining a balance, keeping the Imperium from veering too far into tyranny, while also ensuring that the dark forces of the galaxy do not turn their gaze toward Terra. But perhaps the most intriguing theory is that the Black Fleet was created in response to something far older, far more dangerous, and far more elusive than any of the Imperium's enemies. Some have speculated that the Black Fleet was born out of the Emperor's need to confront something not entirely of this universe, something related to the ancient wars fought during the Age of Strife, or even the precursors to the Eldar, the mysterious entities that existed before the fall of their civilization. This theory, although speculative, suggests that the Black Fleet was more than just a response to external threats. It was a defensive measure created to confront an enemy whose true nature the Emperor never fully understood, an enemy that the Imperium could not comprehend, let alone defeat through conventional means. In the end, the origins of the Black Fleet remain shrouded in the deepest mysteries of Warhammer 40K lore. The more we uncover about it, the more questions arise. Was it created by the Emperor to ensure humanity's survival in ways that the Imperium's public forces could not? Was it a weapon against an unseen enemy? Or was it something else entirely? Perhaps a manifestation of the Emperor's darkest fears and his need for absolute control? Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. The Black Fleet exists in the shadows, and it's not going anywhere. The mystery surrounding it only makes it more powerful, and the fear it instills in those who speak of it is very real. When we talk about the Black Fleet and its origins, we can't ignore the question of the Emperor's will. After all, this hidden armada is rumored to be his creation, or at least his secret tool. But why would such a force, so powerful and so mysterious, need to remain hidden, even from the Imperium itself? The answers are scattered across the deepest corners of Warhammer 40k lore, and what we're left with are theories, speculation, really, about what drove the Emperor to forge such a fleet and why it had to stay buried in the shadows. To start, let's think about the Emperor's vision for humanity. On the surface, he was all about unity, about bringing the fractured worlds of mankind together under the banner of the Imperium. But what if, beneath this grand goal, there was something far darker brewing? The Emperor wasn't just a ruler. He was a strategist, a being who understood the galaxy's most dangerous threats. It's easy to assume that the Emperor's grand vision was all about peace and prosperity, but we forget that he was no stranger to the harsh realities of war. For all his idealism, he knew that humanity's survival was always going to be at stake. The Imperium, as we see it today, is built on a foundation of conflict, conquest, and constant vigilance. But was that the only option? This is where the Black Fleet becomes critical. Imagine the Emperor, a being of unimaginable foresight, seeing the future of humanity and realizing that war alone wouldn't guarantee survival. What if, in his mind, humanity's biggest threats weren't always external? What if there were things so terrible, things that could destroy everything he fought for, that couldn't be dealt with by conventional means? This is where the Black Fleet might come in. The Emperor, with his knowledge of the Warp, the Eldar, and the dark forces that lurked in the universe, might have known that humanity needed something more than just the Imperial Army and the Space Marines. It needed a secret, shadowy force that could operate outside of the Imperium's bureaucracy, a fleet that could handle threats too dangerous to be dealt with publicly. And then, there's the question of secrecy. Why would the Emperor, a being who prized knowledge, sequester such a powerful fleet? The answer lies in the nature of what the Black Fleet was created to do. What if the fleet was tasked with missions so dangerous, so morally gray, that they couldn't be known by anyone but the Emperor and his closest allies? We've all heard the rumors, the whispers about the Emperor's darker motivations, his experiments, his hidden dealings with powers that no one else could comprehend. Perhaps the Black Fleet was a response to something he couldn't let anyone else know about. Some fans argue that the Emperor's need for secrecy comes from the fact that not everyone could be trusted with this knowledge. The Imperium, after all, is full of power-hungry bureaucrats, ambitious generals, and scheming individuals who would use such a fleet for their own ends. What if the Emperor foresaw that if word of the Black Fleet ever got out, it would be used against him? After all, the Imperium is a massive, sprawling machine, and there are always those looking to seize power. In this context, keeping the fleet a secret makes perfect sense. Only the Emperor could control it, only he could wield it, and only he could ensure that it was used for the Imperium's survival, not for the gain of a few. But this is where things get even more complicated. The Emperor wasn't just protecting the Imperium from external threats. He was also protecting it from itself. There's a theory among some fans that the Black Fleet was created as a safeguard against the darker tendencies within humanity itself, against the rise of tyranny, betrayal, and corruption. If the Emperor had truly known the future, if he had seen the horrors of the heresy and the chaos that would tear apart his empire, he might have seen the need for a fleet that could operate without oversight, without political interference. A fleet that could step in when the Imperium, in all its glory, couldn't fix the problem. This theory suggests that the Black Fleet wasn't just a response to external threats like chaos or Xenos. It was also a response to the internal failings of the Imperium itself. Another angle to consider is the Emperor's complex relationship with the Astartes and the Legions. The Emperor's grand plan for the Great Crusade was to unite humanity through strength, but the Legions were not without their faults. The Space Marines, powerful as they were still mortal men. They had their flaws, their temperaments, and their loyalty to the Emperor was not guaranteed. In fact, the Horus Heresy revealed how easily even the mightiest of the Emperor's sons could fall to corruption. The Black Fleet could have been the answer to that very flaw. A fleet not bound by the same loyalties, not tied to the same potential for betrayal. If the Black Fleet was created to perform operations that required absolute loyalty and discretion, then perhaps it was the Emperor's way of ensuring that he had a force that could be trusted with the most dangerous and vital of missions. Then there's the question of the Emperor's personal fears. Many fans believe that despite his vast power and wisdom, the Emperor was always afraid of one thing: the fall of humanity. There's a lingering sense in the lore that the Emperor knew that humanity was always on the edge of destruction, whether from the forces of chaos, the Xenos, or even its own internal flaws. The Black Fleet, in this context, could have been created as a final line of defense, a tool that the Emperor could wield when all else failed. The fleet would be the Imperium's last hope, the weapon of last resort that could prevent the total collapse of everything he had worked for. In the end, the Emperor's motivations for creating the Black Fleet will always remain speculative. Was it a necessary evil, a response to the darker corners of the universe? Was it born from the Emperor's fear of his own people's potential for chaos and destruction? Or was it simply a tool to keep the Imperium alive in a galaxy full of enemies, where no one could afford to be weak? Whatever the reason, the Black Fleet remains one of the most fascinating and terrifying aspects of the Emperor's will, an ultimate secret, hidden away from all but the most trusted, and a force that still, to this day, inspires both fear and awe in those who dare to speak of it. The composition of the Black Fleet is as enigmatic as its very existence. It's a topic that stirs up more questions than answers, and yet, there are those rare glimpses into what this hidden armada could be like. While the official sources of the Imperium remain silent on the matter, fan theories and the scattered bits of lore that exist paint a picture of a fleet unlike any other in the Imperium's vast arsenal. It's a force that operates outside the rigid hierarchies and bureaucratic structures that define the rest of the Imperial fleets. It's a fleet that has been meticulously designed, down to the last detail, to achieve its hidden objectives with ruthless efficiency. But what does this fleet look like? What kind of ships does it command, and who are the men and women who serve aboard them? The ships of the Black Fleet are rumored to be unique in both design and purpose. These aren't the standard Imperial warships you'd expect, those hulking, majestic vessels that form the backbone of the Imperial Navy. The Black Fleet's ships are different, purpose-built for a job that the rest of the Imperium wouldn't even know about, let alone understand. Some fan theories suggest that the ships are based on ancient designs, perhaps remnants of the Emperor's earliest forays into the galaxy before the Great Crusade. These ships would be crafted with advanced technology, far beyond the reach of the rest of the Imperium. Imagine vessels that are equipped with arcane technology, cloaking mechanisms, and warp drives that make them nearly invisible to both Imperial and Xenos sensors. The ships could be as elusive as they are deadly, using stealth and subterfuge as their primary weapons. But it's not just the technology that sets these ships apart, it's also their very purpose. Unlike the gleaming battle barges and warships of the Imperium's main fleets, which are designed for overwhelming firepower and direct confrontation, the ships of the Black Fleet are designed for operations that require subtlety, precision, and secrecy. They are, in a sense, the perfect tools for the dark and twisted missions that the fleet is created for. Some have speculated that the ships might be equipped with specialized weapons that go beyond the traditional arsenal of Imperial warships, perhaps weapons capable of targeting very specific threats, or even weapons designed to operate in the warp, the heart of chaos itself. There's even talk of ships that can bend space around them, making them appear in places where they should not be, in ways that are impossible for the rest of the Imperium to comprehend. Then there are the crews. The Black Fleet isn't manned by the usual Navy officers, nor is it filled with the familiar ranks of Space Marines. The crews are said to be a mix of highly trained operatives, secretive individuals drawn from the highest echelons of the Imperium. Some of these crew members may even be agents of the Inquisition, operating under the strictest secrecy, with no allegiance to anyone but the Emperor himself. There's a theory that the fleet's commanders are some of the most enigmatic figures in the Imperium, a mix of shadowy figures who have been elevated to positions of immense power, but remain unknown to the wider Imperium. These are the kinds of people who can keep secrets, who are willing to make the hard decisions that no one else would dare to. The structure of the fleet is a subject of great debate. Theories vary as to whether the Black Fleet is a singular, cohesive force, or whether it operates more like a collection of highly specialized subfleets, each with its own mission and agenda. What's clear is that the fleet doesn't follow the same rigid command structures that you'd find in the Imperial Navy. It's not bogged down by the same bureaucratic red tape. Instead, the Black Fleet is said to be run with an iron fist, with an almost cult-like loyalty to the Emperor's will. Some fan theories even suggest that the fleet operates in complete secrecy, with its commanders communicating only with each other through encrypted messages, hidden signals, and private channels that the rest of the Imperium can't even begin to comprehend. What makes the Black Fleet's structure even more unusual is its absolute loyalty to its mission. There are no political intrigues here, no backstabbing, no generals jockeying for power. Every member of the fleet, from the lowest crewman to the highest officer, is bound by a singular purpose: to carry out the Emperor's will. This is a force that operates with cold, calculated precision. The loyalty is absolute not to the Imperium, not even to the Emperor's public vision, but to the very heart of his secret plan. This unwavering loyalty to a mission that remains unknown to most is what makes the fleet so dangerous and so powerful. The Black Fleet's crews, though made up of humans, are said to be utterly devoted to their cause, possibly even brainwashed into a mindset that eradicates all personal identity. Some speculate that these crews are not regular humans at all. Some may have been subjected to the Emperor's own genetic experiments or alterations, making them something far beyond ordinary human soldiers. Perhaps these men and women have been enhanced or even conditioned to carry out the fleet's missions without question. Their personalities, their desires, their fears, they may no longer matter. What matters is the fleet, its goals, and the Emperor's ultimate plan. Interestingly, some fans suggest that the Black Fleet's command structure could mirror some of the secretive organizations within the Imperium itself. Could there be ties between the fleet and the Adeptus Mechanicus? The fleet's technological superiority suggests there could be some connection, with the Mechanicus providing not only the ship's advanced technology, but also the underlying belief system that justifies their hidden existence. The possibility that the fleet is a tool of the Mechanicus, or at least operates with their knowledge, opens up a whole new layer of mystery. The idea of the fleet being connected to the Mechanicus also explains why no one outside of this secretive group knows of its existence. After all, the Mechanicus has always been the keeper of many of the Imperium's darkest secrets. What's most fascinating about the fleet, though, is its potential role in the broader narrative of the Imperium. It's easy to assume that the Black Fleet's purpose is purely to fight wars, but what if its role goes beyond that? Could it be that the fleet's true mission is something much darker, something that the Imperium couldn't afford to let the rest of humanity know? Some speculate that the fleet might even be tasked with confronting a threat far greater than anything the Imperium has ever faced, something related to the warp, or perhaps even something the Emperor himself feared. Whatever its purpose, the Black Fleet's composition, its ships, its crews, its structure, speaks to a far greater purpose than we could ever truly understand. And it's this very secrecy, this sense of purpose, that makes it all the more terrifying. It's a fleet built for something much larger than what we could ever imagine, and its true power lies not in the ships or the crews that make it up, but in the unknown, ever-expanding mission it was designed to carry out. The Black Fleet's hidden missions remain one of the most tantalizing mysteries in the Warhammer 40K universe. What were these shadowy vessels truly created to do, and what kind of operations did they undertake that required such secrecy? The more we explore, the more the lines blur between what's written in official lore and what is whispered in the hidden corners of fan speculation. While we don't have the luxury of concrete answers, especially given the fleet's deliberate absence from Imperial records, there are a few recurring themes, theories, and ideas that come up over and over again. The most obvious and perhaps most popular theory is that the Black Fleet was a weapon created specifically to combat threats to humanity that the Imperium couldn't acknowledge publicly. The Imperium, for all its might, is constantly under threat, not just from the Xenos hordes or the forces of chaos, but from things much darker, older, and more insidious. The Black Fleet's most likely purpose could have been to deal with these very threats. Some believe that it was designed to combat specific chaos incursions that the Imperium wasn't prepared to handle with the full force of its legions or fleets. In this theory, the Black Fleet was the last resort, a tool that could operate in the most dangerous and forbidden parts of the galaxy, in places where the Imperium's other forces couldn't or wouldn't go. Fan speculation runs wild when it comes to the exact nature of these threats. Some theorists suggest that the Black Fleet was deployed to combat the demonic incursions into the Materium, those outbreaks of chaos that occur when the boundaries between the warp and the material universe weaken. Given the Emperor's supposed knowledge of the warp and the threats that lay beyond it, it's plausible that the Black Fleet was meant to step in during these crises, operating in the most dangerous zones, purging demonic incursions with extreme prejudice. The fleet's covert nature would make it the ideal tool for such a grim task. No need to report back to higher authorities, no need for confirmation of success. The fleet could simply erase the threat and then disappear into the darkness once again, leaving no trace that it ever existed. But what if the fleet was about more than just fighting chaos? There's also the theory that the Black Fleet was a tool of the Emperor's grander vision of the Imperium, one that he couldn't make known to the rest of humanity. The Imperium, as it stands today, is an empire of bureaucracy, corruption, and stagnation. What if the Black Fleet's purpose was to purge the Imperium from within? Perhaps it was created to root out those who had strayed too far from the Emperor's original will. Rogue factions, corrupted officials, or even rebellious sectors of the Imperium that had become too complacent or too self-interested. If the Emperor's vision was one of absolute unity and survival, then the Black Fleet could have been a means of ensuring that the Imperium was constantly cleaned and pruned, even if that meant purging entire sectors or dealing with enemies that lay within the Imperium's own borders. There are also theories about the Black Fleet's role in dealing with the remnants of the old, pre-Imperial civilizations. We often forget that the Imperium didn't start as the unified, vast empire it is today. It was a shattered collection of worlds, each with their own cultures and histories. Some have speculated that the Black Fleet's missions were designed to track down and neutralize any remaining remnants of these ancient civilizations, be they rogue AI, remnants of the dark age of technology, or even Xenos artifacts and relics that the Imperium would prefer to forget. If the Emperor knew of any hidden technologies or potential threats that could arise from these forgotten pasts, the Black Fleet would have been the perfect vehicle for cleaning up these messes in secret, erasing all evidence before it could ever come to light. But what if the fleet's purpose wasn't just about dealing with external or internal threats to the Imperium? There are those who argue that the Black Fleet had a more sinister role to play. After all, in a universe where the Emperor is often portrayed as a nearly godlike figure who sees everything, it's easy to imagine that he would want a force capable of enforcing his will, not just on the battlefield but across the galaxy, regardless of the cost. What if the Black Fleet was meant to be a form of ultimate control, a fleet designed to keep the Imperium's citizens in check? In this interpretation, the fleet wouldn't be fighting chaos or any other outside force. It would be fighting to maintain the Emperor's hold over his empire. The fleet's secrecy, its unseen presence, would be a constant reminder that the Emperor's power extended into every corner of the galaxy, even those corners no one would dare visit. One particularly intriguing theory among fans is that the Black Fleet was designed to confront an even greater threat, an existential force that was perhaps too terrible for anyone to acknowledge. This could be a reference to the ancient Xenos or other unknown horrors lurking beyond the known galaxy. Some even speculate that the Black Fleet could have been tasked with investigating the true nature of the Eldar's fall, or even dealing with the remnants of their ancient civilization. The Eldar, after all, were a race that once ruled the stars, and their fall to the Chaos Gods left behind remnants of untold power. What if the Emperor knew that one day the remnants of that power would rise again, and he created the Black Fleet to stop it? A fleet of this nature would certainly be the right tool for such a delicate and terrifying task. It would need to be fast, elusive, and powerful enough to fight battles that could alter the course of galactic history. In some of the most chilling speculations, the Black Fleet's missions are said to be directly tied to the Emperor's deeper, darker knowledge of the warp. We know that the Emperor, during his time on Earth, studied the warp extensively, and it's not a stretch to imagine that the Black Fleet was created to keep tabs on the unstable and shifting powers of the warp itself. Could the fleet have been designed to monitor and contain rogue psychers, or even to prevent the rise of a new warp entity that could threaten the Imperium? This would align with some of the Emperor's darker goals, to ensure that humanity would not only survive, but dominate the universe without being consumed by the very forces that created it. In the end, the Black Fleet's hidden missions are likely to remain speculative for the foreseeable future. The Imperium's records don't mention it, and the Inquisition has likely erased all traces of its existence. But that doesn't stop the questions from bubbling to the surface. Was the Black Fleet created to protect the Imperium from forces both external and internal? Or was it the Emperor's way of ensuring humanity's survival, no matter the cost? Could it have been a response to the unknown horrors of the galaxy, or was it simply another tool for maintaining his empire, one that would be wiped from existence when the time was right? The mystery of the Black Fleet is one that fans continue to debate, and perhaps that's exactly how it was meant to be. After all, in a universe as grim and dark as the one in Warhammer 40K, the most powerful secrets are often the ones we will never fully understand. The Black Fleet has always been a ghost in the machine of the Imperium. Operating in the shadows of history, its existence is a whisper among the stars, a force that has moved unseen and unfelt by most of the galaxy. To imagine a fleet so vast, so powerful, yet so completely absent from Imperial records, is to confront the very nature of secrecy at its darkest. The question that fans and historians alike continue to ask is, how did the Black Fleet manage to stay hidden for so long? How did it remain a silent force, capable of executing complex missions without leaving a trace? To understand this, we have to explore the possibility that the Black Fleet was more than just a fleet. It was a network, a web of operations so deeply woven into the fabric of the Imperium that it could execute its tasks without being noticed by the very people it was supposed to protect. One theory that often comes up in discussions about the Black Fleet's hidden operations is the idea that it operated under the radar by taking advantage of the Imperium's sheer size. The Imperium is vast, its bureaucracy is sprawling, its military forces stretch thin across light years of space. In such a gargantuan empire, a fleet could easily slip through the cracks, especially if it were designed to leave no traces of its existence. The Black Fleet could have been structured in a way that allowed it to operate in complete isolation, without the need to report back to the higher echelons of Imperial command. This would make sense, especially if its mission was to carry out tasks that would be too controversial, too dangerous, or too morally ambiguous for anyone else to know about. Another intriguing possibility is that the Black Fleet took advantage of the Imperium's many secrets and factions. Within the Imperium, there are countless organizations that operate in secrecy. The Inquisition, the Adeptus Mechanicus, even certain clandestine factions of the Imperial Guard. It's not hard to imagine that the Black Fleet could have been hidden away in the folds of these organizations, working in parallel with them, without ever being detected. For example, the fleet might have had ties to the Inquisition, acting as a covert tool of the Emperor's most trusted agents. The Black Fleet could have been dispatched on missions too sensitive for even the Inquisition to handle directly, operating under the guise of other Imperial forces, or simply taking advantage of the fact that no one would question the Inquisition's need for secrecy. Some fans believe that the fleet's most crucial operations were carried out in places where the Imperium itself had little oversight. The outer rim of the galaxy, those areas where Imperial presence is weak and the fabric of civilization is threadbare, could have been the perfect location for the Black Fleet to remain unnoticed. The sheer distance between these far-flung sectors and the heart of the Imperium would make it almost impossible for anyone in the Imperium to keep track of its activities. The fleet could have moved through these remote areas, carrying out its objectives without interference, using the vast distances of space to its advantage. In this context, the Black Fleet would be more than just a hidden armada. It would be a symbol of the Emperor's foresight, a tool designed to keep humanity safe from the unseen dangers lurking at the edges of the galaxy. Of course, the idea that the Black Fleet was able to move unnoticed isn't just about physical space. It's also about perception. The Imperium, despite its enormous military might, often finds itself preoccupied with larger, more visible threats. Wars against Xenos, incursions from Chaos, and the ever-present rebellion from within. The Black Fleet could have capitalized on this tendency to focus on the loud, the obvious, and the catastrophic. While the Imperium dealt with its major conflicts, the Black Fleet could have been handling the subtler, more insidious threats, things that didn't appear on the radar of Imperial commanders who were too busy fighting battles in the open to consider the quiet, methodical work of the fleet in the shadows. One of the most compelling fan theories about the Black Fleet's hidden missions involves its role in some of the most mysterious and catastrophic events in Imperial history. Consider the Horus Heresy, for example. While the legions fought each other in a bloody civil war that nearly tore the Imperium apart, there are those who believe that the Black Fleet was operating behind the scenes, working to ensure that the Imperium could survive the aftermath. Some fans suggest that the fleet's primary role during the heresy was to act as a cleanup crew, erasing any traces of the traitor legion's activities that the Imperium couldn't afford to acknowledge. This would explain why the fleet remained so hidden. Its purpose was to erase the most unspeakable parts of the heresy, to make sure that certain events never saw the light of day. There are also theories that the Black Fleet was involved in the aftermath of the heresy, ensuring that any lingering chaos threats within the Imperium's borders were eliminated before they could take root. The fleet's secretive nature would have made it ideal for dealing with these kinds of threats. The fleet could have been dispatched to wipe out chaos cults, rogue psychers, or Xenos incursions, all without ever drawing attention to itself. This theory makes sense when you consider the fact that the Imperium, in its efforts to rebuild after the heresy, would have been deeply reluctant to acknowledge that any remnants of chaos could still be lurking within its borders. The Black Fleet could have also been involved in some of the most significant battles of the 41st millennium, although its involvement would have been carefully hidden. Perhaps the fleet was instrumental in stopping certain Xenos threats or eradicating chaos infestations that were too dangerous to be dealt with openly. In such cases, the fleet's operations would have been conducted in the shadows, with no one ever knowing the true extent of its involvement. After all, the Imperium's strategy is often about winning the war, regardless of the cost or the means, and if that means erasing all evidence of certain operations, then so be it. Even more fascinating is the idea that the Black Fleet has operated continuously, even up to the present day, without anyone being the wiser. In this scenario, the fleet would have remained hidden, executing its missions in the background of larger Imperial campaigns. It could have been responsible for some of the most significant events in the galaxy that no one ever realized were happening. Perhaps it's even responsible for maintaining the balance of power in certain sectors, ensuring that the Imperium's enemies are kept at bay without ever needing to go to war openly. This would explain the fleet's continued secrecy. It's not just a tool of the Emperor's will. It's a force that has quietly shaped the galaxy from the shadows, remaining hidden because its true purpose can never be revealed. When we look back at the Black Fleet's place in the shadows of history, it's clear that its role was one of subtlety and precision. Operating under the radar wasn't just a matter of being unnoticed. It was a strategic decision, one that allowed the fleet to execute its objectives with deadly efficiency while remaining unseen. The more we speculate about the fleet's hidden missions, the more we realize that its true impact on the Imperium may never be fully understood. But one thing is certain: the Black Fleet has always been there, operating in the quiet corners of the galaxy, leaving no trace, and yet shaping the future of humanity in ways that will forever remain a mystery. When we talk about the Black Fleet, we often picture a unified, singular force, a fleet that operates in perfect harmony to serve the Emperor's hidden will. However, the truth is likely much more complex. Beneath its secretive and powerful exterior, the Black Fleet could be home to a number of subgroups, factions, and even rivalries that give it a much more intricate and dynamic structure. The very secrecy that surrounds the fleet, combined with its diverse and shadowy nature, would likely create a series of factions within it, each with their own goals, methods, and interpretations of the fleet's mission. These factions would have to operate under the radar, each pulling in different directions, yet bound together by a singular, elusive purpose. One theory that consistently comes up is the idea that the Black Fleet is not just one singular entity, but rather a collection of autonomous cells or subfleets, each operating with a level of independence that allows them to pursue their own objectives, while still ultimately serving the fleet's overarching purpose. These subfleets could be responsible for different regions of space, or tasked with different missions, from eradicating chaos influences to dealing with rogue psychers, to recovering ancient technologies from the dark age of technology. The level of autonomy within these subgroups would make the Black Fleet a formidable and unpredictable force, one that is as varied as the individuals and groups that make it up. Some fans suggest that the Black Fleet's structure mirrors that of the Imperium's own hidden factions, such as the Inquisition or the Adeptus Mechanicus. Could the fleet's factions be drawn from these groups, with each faction representing a different aspect of the Imperium's shadowy institutions? For example, there could be a faction of the fleet that is deeply tied to the Inquisition, perhaps operating as an offshoot of its secretive operations, tasked with eliminating heretics and traitors who are too dangerous for the standard forces to deal with. Another faction could be more closely aligned with the Adeptus Mechanicus, drawn from their ranks to provide the fleet with advanced technology or to investigate and recover long-lost artifacts and knowledge from humanity's dark past. These factions, while united by the fleet's mission, would likely have very different ideas about how to carry it out, leading to inevitable tensions between them. The possibility of rivalry between these factions is particularly interesting. The Inquisition and the Adeptus Mechanicus, for instance, have historically been at odds with one another. The Mechanicus, obsessed with the preservation of technology and the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, often comes into conflict with the more puritanical Inquisition, which seeks to rid the Imperium of any taint, even if that means destroying precious relics of humanity's past. If these two factions were forced to work together within the Black Fleet, it's easy to imagine a tense and volatile relationship, with each side trying to exert influence over the fleet's operations. The result could be an ongoing, subtle power struggle, one that could potentially undermine the fleet's effectiveness, if not for the fact that their shared mission, whatever it may be, keeps them together despite their differences. But it's not just the major institutions of the Imperium that could play a role in the Black Fleet's factions. The fleet, being as hidden and secretive as it is, would also attract individuals, rogue psychers, criminals, and outcasts from across the galaxy, all of whom would bring their own agendas and philosophies with them. These individuals could form their own subgroups within the fleet, each with their own interpretation of the Black Fleet's mission. For instance, a faction of rogue psychers could believe that their role within the fleet is to serve as the true weapon of the Imperium, wielding the power of the warp to bend the galaxy to the Emperor's will. This group might see themselves as the true inheritors of the Emperor's legacy, believing that only they can truly understand the true potential of the warp and its role in the survival of humanity. Their power could be immense, but it would also bring them into conflict with other factions who fear the dangers of the warp. On the other end of the spectrum, there could be a faction of the Black Fleet that operates more like a criminal syndicate, those who see the fleet as an opportunity to gain power and influence for themselves. These individuals might be former gang lords, mercenaries, or even fallen members of the noble houses who were disgraced or exiled. They would operate with a completely different mindset from the rest of the fleet, willing to make deals, manipulate situations, and break the rules if it means achieving their own goals. Their actions would likely cause tension within the fleet, especially if their motivations conflicted with the higher, more noble ideals of the other factions. Yet, they would still be bound by the need for secrecy, operating behind the scenes and in the shadows to avoid detection by the rest of the Imperium. Then, of course, there is the question of the fleet's commanders. Some speculate that the Black Fleet is not governed by one supreme leader, but rather by a council of high-ranking individuals from various factions, each one representing a different aspect of the fleet's purpose. These commanders would be ruthless and pragmatic, willing to use whatever means necessary to ensure the success of the fleet's missions. However, their personalities and leadership styles could vary dramatically. Some might be deeply loyal to the Emperor's will, seeing their role as guardians of humanity's survival. Others might be more self-serving, viewing the fleet as a tool to further their own personal power. This tension between personal ambition and duty to the Emperor could lead to a series of covert power struggles within the fleet's command structure. Despite these tensions, the fleet would need to remain united, at least outwardly. This is where the ultimate leadership of the Black Fleet becomes even more intriguing. Could it be that there is one central figure, a mysterious and powerful individual who is both feared and respected by all factions within the fleet? This leader could be a shadowy figure, perhaps a former high-ranking officer of the Imperium who has been exiled for their actions, or a being who commands immense power through their mastery of the warp. This individual would hold the factions together, acting as a final arbiter in moments of crisis. But even this central figure would have to play a delicate game, balancing the different factions' interests and ensuring that the fleet continues to operate with deadly precision. The factionalism within the Black Fleet adds layers of intrigue and complexity to its operations. It's not just a fleet of warriors, it's a web of competing ideologies, ambitions, and goals, all working toward the same ultimate purpose. Whether these factions collaborate or clash, whether they cooperate or scheme against one another, their interactions are what give the Black Fleet its unique and dangerous character. The rivalry, the tension, the hidden agendas. All of this makes the fleet more than just a collection of ships and soldiers. It turns it into something far more deadly and unpredictable. And in the cold, unforgiving void of space, that unpredictability might just be its greatest weapon. The Black Fleet's encounters with the enemy, whether they be the Imperium's own forces or the myriad Xenos threats lurking in the darkness of space, are some of the most elusive and tantalizing aspects of its existence. If we consider the fleet's very nature, hidden, secret, and shrouded in mystery, it stands to reason that any encounters it had would have been equally clandestine. The very existence of the fleet is something that no one is supposed to know about, so how could it ever confront anyone without revealing itself? This is the paradox of the Black Fleet. Its encounters are, by design, meant to go unnoticed, to occur in the shadows, without ever drawing attention to the fleet's true role in the galaxy. Some fans speculate that the Black Fleet's missions often brought it into conflict with Imperial forces, though these encounters would have been designed to leave no trace. The fleet might have clashed with Imperial Navy ships, but these skirmishes would have been subtle, almost imperceptible. Perhaps the Black Fleet's fleet of ships would move in and out of Imperial space, engaging in a covert operation against a threat too dangerous to be confronted openly. These operations would leave behind no proof of their existence, no ships destroyed in the wake of battle, no casualties that could be traced back to the fleet. Instead, it would be a quiet, surgical strike, one that erased the problem before it could ever be noticed. The Black Fleet could have carried out countless missions against Imperium forces, wiping out rogue elements, traitors, or even entire fleets in secret. No one would know, no one would question, and all that would remain would be the result, the threat eradicated without anyone ever realizing who had done it. Another theory is that the fleet's encounters with the Imperium were often conducted under the guise of other factions. The Black Fleet could have crossed paths with Imperial forces on the borders of space, appearing to be another fleet sent from Terra to deal with a threat, when in fact it was executing its own secret mission. These hidden operations would have been carried out with the utmost care, ensuring that no one could ever trace the fleet's activities back to its true nature. In this way, the fleet could have engaged with Imperial forces repeatedly, each time under the cover of legitimacy, all the while avoiding detection by those who would have sought to stop it. The most fascinating and perhaps most unnerving theory regarding the Black Fleet's interactions with the Imperium involves the possibility that the fleet was, at times, used to eliminate enemies within the Imperium itself. Rogue generals, traitorous factions, or political enemies of the Emperor who had become too dangerous to be allowed to survive. This would fit with the idea that the Black Fleet was a tool of extreme discretion, operating behind the scenes to keep the Imperium from collapsing under its own internal corruption. In such a case, the fleet's encounters would have been more covert, with the fleet striking at its enemies in secret, erasing them without leaving a mark. The fact that no one would ever know about these actions makes them all the more chilling, a reminder that the Imperium's survival was sometimes ensured through ruthless and silent means. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Black Fleet's encounters is the question of its dealings with the Xenos. In the Warhammer 40K universe, the Imperium is constantly at war with a vast array of alien races, some of them ancient and powerful, others strange and incomprehensible. If the Black Fleet was tasked with protecting humanity from the greatest threats to its survival, it would be no surprise if it found itself in conflict with these Xenos races as well. The fleet's hidden nature would make it an ideal tool for dealing with these alien forces without ever revealing the Imperium's hand. It could have been dispatched to destroy Xenos outposts or to prevent a dangerous alien race from gaining a foothold in Imperial space. These encounters would have been swift and decisive, taking place in the far reaches of space, where the Imperium's other forces could not be mobilized quickly enough. The Black Fleet would swoop in, deal with the threat, and then disappear without a trace. The Xenos would never know what hit them, and the Imperium would be none the wiser. Some fans argue that the Black Fleet could have been used to combat the most dangerous Xenos of all, the forces of chaos. If the fleet was created to deal with the darker side of the galaxy, it stands to reason that it would have encountered the demonic legions of the warp at some point. These encounters, however, would have been unlike any battles the Imperium had fought before. The Black Fleet's operations would have been designed to contain and destroy chaos incursions before they could spread across the galaxy. The fleet might have faced off against traitor legions that had gone rogue, or against the cultists and demons that constantly seek to corrupt the Imperium from within. What makes these encounters so terrifying is that they would have been fought in absolute secrecy. The Black Fleet could have wiped out these chaos forces, only for the Imperium to remain oblivious, believing that the danger had been averted by another means. The theory of the Black Fleet being involved in secret wars against chaos is further supported by the fleet's supposed connection to the Inquisition. The Inquisition is no stranger to dealing with the forces of chaos, and it is easy to imagine that the Black Fleet could have been working hand in hand with this shadowy organization to root out the taint of chaos from the galaxy. If this was the case, the fleet's encounters with chaos would have been masked by the Inquisition's own secrecy. There would be no public reports, no grand victories celebrated by the Imperium, just the quiet, unnoticed destruction of a threat that no one would ever know about. The Inquisition could have used the Black Fleet to deal with the most dangerous incursions, knowing that the fleet's operations would never be linked to the Imperium's official military forces. Despite these theories, there is still much we don't know about the Black Fleet's interactions with other factions. Perhaps the fleet's true encounters have been lost to time, erased from history, buried in the shadows of the galaxy. What we do know is that the fleet's very existence relies on its ability to remain unnoticed, to strike from the dark corners of space without leaving any trace. The fleet's encounters, whether with the Imperium or with the Xenos, are meant to remain hidden, as silent as the shadows in which the fleet itself resides. And that, in many ways, is what makes the Black Fleet so terrifying, its ability to operate unseen, to eliminate threats without ever being detected, and to shape the future of the Imperium without anyone ever knowing it. The Black Fleet's influence on the Imperium, though often unseen and unspoken, could have been far-reaching, shaping not just the course of wars, but the very political and military structures that define the Imperium as a whole. It's easy to dismiss the fleet as nothing more than a secretive arm of the Emperor's will, an isolated tool used in only the most dire of circumstances. But when we really dig into the heart of its purpose, the more we realize that the Black Fleet could have subtly woven itself into the fabric of the Imperium, acting as a shadowy hand that pushed events in one direction or another, without anyone truly understanding the why or the how. Let's start with the political landscape of the Imperium. The fleet's very existence and its hidden role suggests that it could have had a significant impact on imperial politics, even though its actions remained in the shadows. In the cutthroat political world of the Imperium, where power is constantly in flux and factional rivalries often dictate the course of events, it's not hard to imagine the Black Fleet playing a role in manipulating key political outcomes. Imagine the fleet operating in the background, executing high-stakes missions that align with the interests of certain factions within the Imperium, but never revealing its involvement. It's possible that the fleet's actions helped to steer political maneuvering, ensuring that the right leaders stayed in power, or that certain factions, which might have been too dangerous or unstable, were neutralized before they could seize too much influence. The most obvious candidate for this sort of manipulation is the Inquisition, which is no stranger to playing behind-the-scenes games of power. Some fans speculate that the Black Fleet might have been an unofficial ally to the Inquisition, working alongside them to deal with internal threats to the Imperium's leadership. If the Inquisition had caught wind of a rising political star, one with too much ambition or one whose loyalty could be questioned, it's possible the Black Fleet was sent to quietly deal with the situation. The fleet's ability to operate in absolute secrecy without leaving a trace would make it the perfect tool for eliminating rivals or potential threats to the Imperium's fragile political balance. The Inquisition, with its far-reaching influence, would likely have seen the Black Fleet as an invaluable asset, able to do the dirty work that other Imperial forces couldn't or wouldn't be able to handle. What's truly fascinating is the potential for the Black Fleet to have influenced the Imperium's very structure. Consider how the Imperium's military and bureaucratic systems have become mired in tradition and inefficiency. Over time, the Imperium has become an institution bogged down by age-old practices, its leadership often more concerned with maintaining control than addressing the galaxy's pressing needs. In this context, the Black Fleet could have played a key role in keeping the Imperium from descending into chaos. By acting behind the scenes, the fleet could have neutralized threats that might have otherwise sparked open rebellion, removing dangerous elements from within the Imperium without the need for widespread conflict. Its role would have been like that of a shadowy enforcer, carrying out the will of the Emperor in a way that no one else could. But this covert role also raises an intriguing question. Could the Black Fleet have subtly influenced the very nature of the Imperium itself? It's easy to imagine that, in the hands of a select few individuals within the fleet, there could have been a slow, almost imperceptible shift in the direction of Imperial policy. If the Black Fleet's commanders were given the freedom to operate without oversight, it's possible they could have altered key decisions, nudging the Imperium in a direction that would benefit the fleet's hidden objectives. Some fan theories argue that the fleet's influence might have been responsible for certain strategic decisions that appeared to be random or inexplicable at the time, but in reality were part of a much larger, hidden plan. Now, let's take a step back and consider the military implications of the Black Fleet's influence. While the fleet might have had its fingers in the political pie, its true power would lie in its ability to execute military operations with deadly precision. The Black Fleet wasn't just another military force. It was an enigma, a force that could strike at a moment's notice, with little to no warning. Its very existence challenges the notion that the Imperium's military is the epitome of power in the galaxy. After all, the fleet operated with such secrecy and autonomy that it could easily have carried out missions of immense importance without anyone ever realizing its true nature. Some have speculated that the Black Fleet could have been tasked with dealing with threats that the rest of the Imperium's military could never have handled, whether due to the nature of the threat itself or the political ramifications of confronting it. For example, the fleet might have been responsible for engaging with Xenos forces that were too dangerous to be dealt with openly, such as the Eldar or the Necrons. Its stealth and speed would allow it to strike quickly and decisively, catching enemies off guard and then vanishing before anyone could react. In this way, the fleet could have been the hidden blade of the Imperium, striking from the shadows to eliminate threats that were deemed too dangerous or politically sensitive to be handled by more conventional means. Furthermore, it's worth considering how the fleet's actions could have influenced the development of military strategy within the Imperium. The very fact that such a secret force existed, one capable of operating without oversight or accountability, would likely have shaped the way military commanders approached conflict. The existence of the Black Fleet would have forced Imperial commanders to rethink their strategies, to question what they could and couldn't get away with in their dealings with enemies, both internal and external. It might have led to a more paranoid, more cautious approach to warfare, where commanders constantly wondered whether they were being watched or whether a covert force like the Black Fleet was lurking just out of sight, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Black Fleet's influence might also have shaped the way the Imperium dealt with the most existential threats to humanity, such as chaos and the forces of the warp. The fleet's ability to operate in the darkest corners of space, beyond the reach of the Imperium's regular forces, could have given it a unique perspective on the galaxy's most dangerous enemies. Perhaps the fleet was used not just to fight these threats, but to study them, to learn their weaknesses and understand their tactics in ways that no one else could. This hidden knowledge could have been used to shape Imperial military doctrine, to ensure that the Imperium was always one step ahead of its enemies, even if no one knew how. In the end, the Black Fleet's influence on the Imperium is one of the most fascinating aspects of its legacy. Its role, though hidden, could have been profound, shaping the political and military landscape of the Imperium in ways that no one will ever fully understand. Whether through subtle manipulation, covert military operations, or strategic foresight, the Black Fleet's impact would have been felt across the galaxy, even if its actions were never acknowledged. Its influence might have kept the Imperium on course, preventing it from falling into the same traps that have destroyed so many other empires. And perhaps most chilling of all, its existence reminds us that sometimes the most powerful forces are the ones that operate in the shadows, unseen and unknown, pulling the strings behind the scenes while the rest of the galaxy remains blissfully unaware. As we wrap up our exploration of the Black Fleet, it's impossible to ignore the lingering questions and the mysteries that still surround it. What is certain, however, is that the Black Fleet occupies a unique and vital space in the Warhammer 40K universe. It stands as a symbol of secrecy, a hidden force operating beyond the Imperium's established military structure, working to fulfill missions so dark and so critical that they can never be revealed. Its very existence speaks to the depths of the Emperor's foresight and his understanding of the galaxy's dangers that, to this day, remain beyond the Imperium's comprehension. The fleet's true purpose is still unclear, but the theories surrounding it have offered us tantalizing glimpses into what it could have been created to do. Whether it was designed to combat the most insidious and secretive threats, whether it was a tool of political manipulation, or whether it was meant to deal with existential dangers from beyond the galaxy, the Black Fleet's role in the Imperium's survival cannot be overstated. It's a reminder that the Imperium, for all its power and might, has always operated in the shadows, with forces and plans that are too dangerous or too mysterious to be acknowledged by the public. The implications of the Black Fleet's existence are vast. If we consider the fleet's role as an instrument of the Emperor's will, we must also recognize the deeper truths about the Imperium that it brings to light. The fleet is a reminder that the Imperium is not just a force for order and righteousness, but a deeply flawed and complex empire where secrecy, manipulation, and ruthlessness are often the only ways to maintain control. The Black Fleet is a reflection of the darker side of humanity, a force that operates in the shadows to protect humanity's survival, even when that survival requires actions that no one could ever admit to. And yet, for all its hidden missions and its undeniable power, the Black Fleet remains an enigma. Despite the numerous fan theories, the vast majority of its true operations remain unknown. It's a force that operates outside the boundaries of established lore, a reminder that there are still countless secrets left to uncover in the 40K universe. The very fact that it is not part of the official Imperial records adds to its mystique, creating a narrative where the unknown is just as powerful as the known. In the end, the Black Fleet is a paradox. It is a force that could have shaped the Imperium's history in ways we may never fully understand, a tool that served the Emperor's most secretive goals. It's a fleet that continues to captivate the imaginations of fans, offering up endless possibilities for what it might have done and what it might still be doing. The mystery surrounding it only deepens as time goes on, leaving us to wonder if, one day, the truth will come to light, or if it will remain locked away just as it has always been in the dark corners of the galaxy. As we reflect on the Black Fleet's place in the Warhammer 40K universe, one thing becomes clear. Its shadow will always loom over the Imperium. Whether as a force of salvation or a harbinger of doom, it serves as a reminder that, in the grimdark future, there are always forces at work behind the scenes, shaping the fate of humanity in ways we may never fully understand. The Black Fleet, like the galaxy it inhabits, remains a mystery, one that is unlikely to be solved anytime soon. But that mystery is what makes it so compelling, so integral to the larger narrative of Warhammer 40K. And in a universe where the unknown is often the greatest threat, that makes the Black Fleet one of the most powerful and terrifying forces to ever exist.